My story of storytelling. Well, I went on a vacation, went on a small ship, steamship. And instead of big Broadway shows for entertainment, they asked, one night was a talent show of all the people that were on the ship, just passengers going around Alaska. And there were some marvelous people, and they did everything from dancing to playing piano. And I said to my friend, gee, I should recite that ballad, The Face on the Barroom Floor. She says, yeah, do it. So I got up and I did this ballad. It takes 5 to 8 minutes to recite. And it's a literary recitation, so it's word for word, just memorized. And for the next 4 days, or 5 days, the rest of the trip, people kept coming up to me going, you're the one that did that poem. Oh, wow, my dad that was his favorite ballad. And one comment after another, but one woman walked up pointing her finger at me. And I went, what did I do? She said, you should be a storyteller. Well, I knew that was someone who tells stories, but I didn't know what she meant. So I came back to the Bay Area where I lived to find out about storytelling. And I found out there's a whole family of storytelling, traveling around the country, quitting their day jobs or night jobs and making a living telling stories. Well, I wasn't gutsy enough to quit my night job, so I would work at night, sleep an hour or two here or there, and go off and tell stories during the day. And I went through Dominican College's certificate in storytelling program, and then I started going out and doing free storytelling for about 1 year. And then I thought, okay, time to earn my living. So I started charging, and that's when I first got into professional storytelling. That was about 26 years ago. Yeah, about 1993. My favorite is doing a modge podge of all different kinds of stories. I like telling animals, regular folk tales from various countries. I like telling funny stories, poignant stories, historical, tall tale, educational, mix it up. Personal stories. Makes it more fun. Lots of variety. While I was going to Dominican College, they talked about storytellers and their styles, and I thought, gee, I wonder what style I'll have. And after I'd been going through courses, there was one course where you gave critiques and things. And everybody said, you tell with energy, you're very exciting, you're, animated. And I went, oh, that must be my style. So I would say that I like to engage with the audience on a personal level of connection. If you're a good teller, the listener, the teller, and the story all come together. It pulls the audience in, and even though you may have come alone or just with your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whoever you're with, it's not just for you two, and not just for you 3 or 4. It's for everybody. And you want to touch everybody, bring them all together so that they're all experiencing similar experiences in the story. I think it gets them away from their electronics for at least a few minutes, if not longer. And it reminds people of the connections that we have. You connect, even though you don't know the other people sitting around you in an audience, you are connecting with them on some level. And that's what the story does for both of you, both the teller and the audience. It brings them together to do a dance, and that's in the story.
Does the good guy or good gal always win?
Oh, no. Mostly, but not always. And there's lessons to be learned in stories. And probably very Buddhist type lessons. It's karma coming back, good and bad. Advice to young or new storytellers. Well, it'll be different for young people versus anybody.
Start there.
If I were giving advice to a young person who's getting into storytelling, I would say tell, tell, tell. But for anybody who's learning to be a storyteller. You tell to your friends, your family, your parents, your cousins, your neighbor next door, the guy in the grocery store, anybody who will listen to you, tell. The more you tell, the better you get, both connection-wise and in your ability to disappear and let the story be the forefront of what's happening. I don't think storytelling itself has changed, other than within certain societies where, like the Irish are known for storytellers. You go into a pub, you're going to hear stories. In America, people are too busy with their electronics, their banking, they're rushing, they're here, there, and everywhere, everything to do and no time to do it all. And stories have fallen away. We are not known as storytellers. A lot of people go, oh no, I could never tell a story, even though they're telling stories every time they tell an experience about what happened at the grocery store 10 minutes ago. They're telling stories. How do I think storytelling has changed through the ages? I think styles have changed, but I don't know that storytellers or stories have changed, other than keeping up with, when you tell urban legends, it's including the society that now exists, or just 20 years ago existed, or maybe 30 or 40, but not 200. Those stories are very different. And so I think the stories themselves haven't changed, but the tellers and their way of delivering the story may have changed some. How is storytelling used nowadays? Well, a lot of teachers bribe their kids. If you finish these lessons, I'll tell you a story. And the kids will leap over ferns to get a story. So that's one way. A lot of people I know have worked with women in battering situations or abused situations, where they learn how to deal with the traumas that they've incurred in the seedy side of life. And stories are now being used in businesses. They're being used in hospitals, working with kids who are overcoming trauma. All different kinds of ways. I can't even think of how many. And of course, there's storytelling festivals across the country and around the world promoting their culture or ways of behaving. It used to be how children learned what is expected of them in this society. You'd tell a story about the boy who cried wolf. He learned that if he didn't tell the truth, nobody believed him, and nobody came to help. And so that's how children learned a lot of different stories, not just one story, but many stories would teach them ways to behave, and that there's consequences if you don't. Today, I think there's a lot more trouble with crime and all kinds of problems with youth, and I think a lot of it has to do with children are not hearing stories much anymore. At a time, probably even 20 years ago, if you said once upon a time, the entire classroom would go into a trance, waiting for the story. Today, it's like, what? That's old-fashioned. Once upon a time, what? You know? They're more judgmental. They're not as open to it because they don't get to hear many stories. And those who do are very lucky. I think storytelling can be used to improve family dynamics by including the children as a partner in the family. It's a machine that has cogs, and all the cogs have to work together for a smooth life. And I think that when you bring up children and they hear stories, they learn from them. And hopefully their parents are sharing that together time as well as the story and what they can learn from it and grow from. Yeah. Oh, some of my favorite storytellers are Elizabeth Ellis, Donald Davis, Tim Tingle, Diane Ferlat, Willie Claflin, Susan Klein, Heather Forrest. Heather Forrest sings and tells stories. She rewrites the story in rhyme sometimes. She does Aesop's Fables. She sings Aesop Fables.
Okay.
And it's beautiful. Well, Kenneth and I did some storytelling in the Bay Area. He lived out in Livermore. I lived in Oakland. We belonged to a group called Stagebridge, and Stagebridge would send tellers out into the schools to work with children, either helping teach them storytelling or to just entertain and tell them grandparent tales so they could see the kinds of things that we as kids their age did when we were their age. Funny stories like cutting school or something like that. The kids just love hearing things you did wrong or when you got in trouble for something. They don't think of adults as getting into trouble so much unless they're bad people who rob banks or something. We were telling stories together, and Kenneth said, "Oh, I'm going to be moving up to Santa Rosa." I said, "Oh, you need to start a story swap. They haven't had a swap up there for years." And he went, yeah, once I get settled and moved in. Well, he was up here 3 years before I retired, and I was planning to move up here. So when I moved up, I said, "Okay, Kenneth, that's it. We are going to start a story swap." And he goes, "Oh, it's perfect timing. I just finished having my garage added onto. I've got this nice space that we can tell stories." And I'm thinking, a garage, cement floors, wood walls, it's going to echo like crazy. It's going to be cold in the wintertime. Well, we'll do it until we find another place. So we started meeting. Well, he did not just pull the car out of the garage, roll down the garage door and say, "Take a seat." We would mop the floors. First we would dust the floors, mop the floors, roll out a rug, put up chairs, hang curtains, put rugs on the wall. So it not only was a cozy, welcoming space, but it was warm, it was inviting, and it was not echoey. It was perfect for storytelling. But we could only sit about 30 people in there. And toward the time that we were no longer meeting at his house, we were pretty much full house and thinking we needed more space. Storytelling is a wonderful profession. It's easy to do when you do it free. When you're being paid, at least I seem to take on a whole lot more responsibility and think, "Oh, I hope they're happy with what I chose to tell. Oh, I hope they're enjoying this." Wanting to give them their money's worth. But I do enjoy it and love doing it.